The mockery the stars outside the window of the battleship burned quietly, far from the chaos waiting below. In the war zone of Sector 9, Earth's last alliance with alien forces was preparing for a dangerous ground mission. Soldiers moved through the metal halls, checking weapons, adjusting armor, and saying silent prayers. Zura stood alone, arms crossed behind her back. She was not nervous. She was never nervous. She was a warrior of this Every Empire, tall and graceful with blue skin, sharp eyes, and silver armor that shimmered under the lights. Emotions were a weakness in her culture. Love was a joke. And kissing? Disgusting. She watched with cold eyes as two human soldiers hugged each other before boarding the dropship. One of them kissed the other gently on the lips. Zura made a small sound in her throat, half laugh, half cough. Primitive behavior, she said. Your kind kisses before war? Why not cry like infants too? A nearby human officer turned toward her. His name was Captain Ray. He was calm, serious, and wore simple black armor. His face had small scars, but his eyes held something stronger than pain, something peaceful. It helps, Ray said softly. Zura raised one brow. Helps what? Fight better? It helps you remember what you're fighting for. Zura turned to him fully now, interested but also amused. I fight for duty, for victory. I don't need wet lips and soft feelings to remind me why I carry a weapon. Ray didn't smile. He just looked at her and said, maybe one day you'll understand why we do. Before Zura could answer, the intercom echoed through the hall. Mission. Bravo 47. Prepare for deployment. Team leaders, Zura of Zev Prime and Captain Ray of Earth Unit 4. You will lead together. Zura stiffened. I must work with ... him? Ray blinked once. Seems like it. Minutes later, they stood side by side in the dropship, heading to the surface of the planet below. The engines roared, shaking everything. Zura said nothing. She simply stared ahead, arms folded. Ray watched the soldiers around him check their gear. He leaned toward her slightly. You've never fought beside a human before, have you? Zura answered without looking at him. I have no interest in humans, only the mission. And yet, Ray said quietly, now you're trusting your life to one. She ignored the comment. The ship landed hard. The door opened with a loud hiss and heat. From the battlefield rushed in like a wave. Smoke, fire, and flashes of plasma filled the air. Their mission was clear. Destroy the enemy power core and retreat. Simple on paper. Deadly in truth. They moved fast through broken metal buildings and shattered streets. Zura fought like a blade, fast, cold, deadly. Ray followed close, covering her with quick shots and smart moves. They didn't speak, but they moved together better than expected. At one point, they ducked behind cover. Laser fire zipped above their heads. Ray turned to Zura, breathing fast. You're good. Zura smirked. I know. A few more steps, and they reached the power core. Zura set the charge while Ray watched the scanner. 3 minutes before it blows, she said. Then we run, Ray replied. But before they could move, a mechanical soldier dropped from the ceiling. Zura turned too late. The machine hit her hard, throwing her against the wall. Her head rang. She tried to stand, but her leg was twisted. The robot raised its weapon toward her. Ray fired before he could shoot. His bullets hit the robot's head, and it collapsed in sparks and smoke. He rushed to Zura. You okay? I am fine, she lied, wincing. Your leg's broken? He said. She growled. Leave me. Complete the mission. Ray didn't listen. He pulled her up, supporting her weight. She tried to push him away, but he held firm. You saved me earlier. Now it's my turn, he said. Zura looked at him with something close to confusion. No one from her world would risk a mission to save a wounded soldier. That was not logical. That was not strength. They escaped the building just before the explosion. The blast lit up the sky behind them. Ray helped her lie down behind a wall. While medics arrived, Zura stared at him. "Why did you help me?" Ray shrugged. "Because that's what humans do." She was silent for a moment. Then she said quietly, "You ... kissed that woman before battle. Was that also to remember what you're fighting for?" Ray looked at the smoke rising in the distance. "No, that kiss was to say goodbye ... in case we didn't come back." Zura didn't reply. For the first time in her life, she had no clever words. She simply looked away, but something inside her chest, something new - stirred ... forced companions *. The med bay was quiet. Only the soft hum of machines and distant sounds of war broke the silence. Zura lay on a steel bed, her leg wrapped in a glowing healing cast. She stared at the ceiling, arms crossed over her chest. Her sharp alien features were calm, but inside, her mind was burning. She hated this feeling. Weakness, dependence, confusion. She remembered it clearly. The moment she fell, helpless. The moment Captain Ray chose to save her instead of completing the mission alone. He could have left her. He should have. That would have been logical, efficient, the Zevari way. But he didn't. And that kiss, that human kiss she had mocked, she couldn't stop thinking about it. Not the act itself, but the meaning behind it. Goodbye, care, love, all things her kind rejected as nonsense. Why did it stay in her mind like a wound that wouldn't close? She sat up as the door opened. Her commander appeared on the screen above. The bed, his voice cold and sharp. "Zura, the human saved you. Unacceptable. You are assigned to a new mission. Deep infiltration." Zura nodded. "Understood. I will complete it." "There's more," the commander said. "You will go with the human." Zura's eyes narrowed. "Again?" "Yes. Earth Command has insisted. He trusts you. They believe. Your bond is valuable." Zura almost laughed. "A bond?" She didn't form bonds. She formed kills. But the order was final. The next day, she met Ray outside the transport hangar. He stood there, leaning against a crate, reading something on a small screen. When he saw her, he gave a slight smile. "Back on your feet." "Good to see." Zura gave him a hard look. "I did not ask to be paired with you again." Ray closed his screen. "Yeah, well, I didn't ask to save you either." Her eyes flashed, but before she could answer, their transport landed. Their mission was simple on paper: enter a dead space station orbiting a collapsed moon. The station was silent, dark, but sending strange signals. Some thought it was a trap. Others thought it was hope. Zura and Ray were sent to find out. Inside the station, everything felt wrong. The air was thick with dust and the smell of metal. Lights flickered weakly. No bodies, no noise. Just long halls filled with shadows. Zura moved ahead, her steps silent, her weapon ready. Ray followed close, scanning each room. "This place is too quiet," he said. "CUR." A nodded. "Something is watching us." They entered the command deck. Screens were cracked, data flashing in broken code. Suddenly, a small sound like a whisper echoed through the hallway behind them. Ray turned. "Did you hear that?" Zura didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the main screen. It had suddenly lit up, showing a video. It was of a human crew. Alive, laughing, hugging, and then screaming. They watched the crew get attacked by something invisible. One by one they vanished. No blood. Just gone. Ray swallowed hard. "That's not normal." "No," Zura agreed. "This station ... remembers." Just then, The door slammed shut behind them. Ray rushed to it. Looked. Zura raised her weapon. We are not alone. Hours passed inside that metal tomb. The air grew colder. Shadows moved when no one walked. Zura felt something strange. Not fear, but something close. She had always been trained to ignore feelings. But here, in this haunted place, emotion came whether she wanted it or not. Ray sat near her, back against the wall, studying the data. You think something killed them? Not something, Zura whispered. Memory. This station remembers their love, their laughter, their pain. It feeds on it. Ray looked up. You think emotion is a weapon? Zura hesitated. Maybe. To some species, yes. Ray leaned closer. You know what I think? I think this place was a home, and something hated that. It erased every feeling here. It left only silence. Zura met his eyes. Why do humans protect feelings so much? Ray smiled sadly. Because that's all we have when the war is over. She looked away, pretending to check her weapon. But her chest ached. Not from injury. From something she didn't understand. Suddenly, lights flashed red. Something's coming, Ray said. The doors opened, and a figure stepped in. Not machine, not human. Something else. It moved like a shadow. Eyes like stars. It looked at Zura and smiled. You feel too much, it said in a voice that echoed inside their minds. That's why you will break. Ray stood between it and her. Not if we break you first. The thing laughed, and the room exploded in chaos. Ray and Zura fought side by side. Weapons useless. They had to think, not shoot. Together, they found the core of the station and overloaded it. As they escaped into the emergency pod, the station began to collapse. Inside the small escape pod, Ray's arm was bleeding. Zura tore her sleeve and wrapped it silently. You didn't leave me, he said. Zura looked at him. You saved me first. He smiled, tired. You're learning, she didn't answer. But in that moment, something had changed. She no longer felt proud of being cold. She felt something else, something dangerously human. The heartbeat. The escape pod drifted in silence, far above the burning ruins of the dead station. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass. Inside the tiny space, Zura sat with her knees pulled up, eyes locked on the metal floor. Ray lay beside her, half conscious, his wound still fresh. The emergency systems kept them alive, but barely. Oxygen was low. Heat was dropping. And rescue was still hours away. Zura listened to the soft hum of the pod. And something else. A slow, steady rhythm. Thump, thump. At first, she thought it was the pod's engine. But no. It was Ray's heartbeat. She had heard heartbeats before in battle, in combat scans, but never this closely, never this clearly, and never one that refused to die. She moved closer to check his vitals. His eyes opened slowly. You're still here, he whispered. I don't leave allies behind, she replied. You didn't always believe that. Zura didn't answer. He smiled weakly. Progress. An hour passed. Zura sat still, but her mind was racing. Ray had fallen asleep again. His heartbeat slowed, but stayed steady. It echoed in her ears, louder than the engines, louder than the war. Why did she keep listening? She told herself it was medical, logical, but deep down it felt like something more, something she didn't have a word for. Suddenly, Ray groaned and shifted. Nightmare, he muttered. Don't leave. Zura leaned in. Ray. His eyes blinked open. They were wet. I saw my brother, he said softly. He died in the last war. I was the one who told him to go. He smiled at me. Then, gone. Zura didn't move. She had seen death, cause death. But this, was different. Ray continued. You know what the last thing he did was? He kissed the picture of our mom. That's how he said goodbye. Zura stared at him, trying to process it. Humans are strange, she said. You hold on to things you can't change. Ray nodded. Because memories are all we get in the end. Zura looked away, but her voice was soft. Your heartbeat is very loud, he blinked. Thanks? I don't mean noisy, she said quickly. It's strong. Ray tilted his head. You've been listening to my heartbeat? Zura looked annoyed. It is impossible not to. This pod is small. Ray chuckled. Don't worry. I'll try to beat more quietly. Suddenly, the pod shook. A flash of light outside. Something was approaching. Zura stood up, eyes sharp. We are not alone. Ray sat up painfully. Rescue? Zura checked the sensors. Her face darkened. No. Pirates. They scan for weak ships. They'll board us. Ray tried to stand, but he was too weak. Zura picked up a small energy blade. We can't fight them here, he said. No, but I can delay them. Ray reached out and grabbed her arm. Zura, don't do anything stupid. She looked down at his hand. It was warm, human. I'm not doing it for you, she lied. The pirates boarded within minutes. The door was forced open with a hiss. Zura stood ready, blade in hand. 4 of them entered armored, masked, laughing. Look what we found. One said, a pretty alien and a bleeding meat bag. Another stepped forward. Surrender, blue girl. We don't hurt quiet ones. Zura smiled coldly. Good, because I don't die quietly. She moved like lightning. The first pirate went down in one slice. The second tried to shoot Zura, dodged, and broke his arm. Ray grabbed a metal rod and hit the third one in the knee. But the fourth grabbed Ray and put a gun to his head. Enough! He shouted. Zura froze. The pirate smirked. Drop your blade or he dies. Zura's heart raced. Logic said, sacrifice the human. Complete the fight, but the heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. She couldn't do it. She dropped her blade. The pirate laughed and shoved Ray to the ground. Good girl. But the second Ray hit the floor. He rolled, grabbed the pirate's ankle, and pulled. Zura kicked the man's throat. In seconds, it was over. Ray coughed, bleeding again. Zura helped him sit. You disobeyed logic, she whispered. Ray looked up. So did you? After the pirates were locked away, they sat in the pod once more. Oxygen was low, but rescue was finally on the way. Ray leaned back. Thanks for not letting them shoot me. Zura didn't smile. I still don't understand. You don't have to, Ray said. Just keep listening. He tapped his chest. Thump, thump. Zura closed her eyes. She didn't say it out loud, but in that moment, she found the sound of his heartbeat peaceful. Betrayal code *. The shuttle landed softly on a quiet base hidden deep inside the dark side of Saturn's smallest moon. Thick black clouds floated in the sky above, blocking the stars. The silence here was different, not peaceful, but heavy. Like the air itself knew secrets it didn't want to share. Zura stepped out first, her face emotionless, her body healed from the last mission. Ray followed slowly, still walking with a slight limp. He didn't complain. He never did. The two were silent as they passed through the gates of the Zevari Earth Alliance outpost. Soldiers from both species nodded at them. Rumors of their escape from the haunted station had spread fast. Some looked at them with respect, others with suspicion. Inside the base, Zura was called to a private chamber by her own command. She entered, standing tall before a massive screen. Her superior, High Strategist Vorik, appeared in flickering blue. Light, Zura, he said coldly. You have strayed. She frowned. I have completed every mission. Yes, but you've grown. Close to the human. Zura's jaw tightened. He is a capable soldier. You speak with him. You protect him. You listen to his heartbeat. Zura didn't answer. Vorik leaned forward. You were not sent to learn human feelings. You were sent to measure them, to test them, to break them if needed. What are you asking of me? She asked, her voice flat. Vorik's voice turned sharp. The human carries something we need. A memory crystal implanted in his brain after the last AI war. He doesn't know. But the data inside him are enemies. Would kill to have it. Zura stepped back slightly. You're saying he's a carrier? He is nothing but a tool. Extract the crystal. Bring it home. Leave the body. Her breath caught in her throat, but only for a second. I will obey, she said. But when she walked out of the chamber, her hands were shaking. Later that night, Ray found her sitting on a quiet bench near the oxygen trees. Long day? He asked. She didn't look at him. What is inside your head, Ray? He laughed. You mean apart from sarcasm and war trauma? Zora's voice stayed cold. You carry data, a memory crystal. Ray blinked. What? She looked at him. Eyes unreadable. Do you remember any implants? Any lost time? Ray thought for a moment. A few weeks after the last war, I blacked out. They said it was a concussion. I never really questioned it. Zora stood slowly. If what I'm told is true, then you're carrying something that does not belong to you. Ray's smile faded. Is that what I am now? A package? Zora didn't answer. He stepped closer. What's really going on, Zora? She looked at him, and for the first time, her voice trembled. I was given a choice. Take the crystal, or leave you. Behind, Ray's face darkened. And I said I would follow orders, she whispered. Ray stepped back. You were going to kill me? I was going to obey, she said. That's who I was. He turned away, silent. She took a slow breath. But now, I don't know who. I am. That night, Zora sat alone in her room, staring at the extraction tool in her hand. One stab in the neck, and the crystal would be removed. Quick, efficient. She held the blade near her chest. And again, she heard it thump. Thump, dot hers, dot his dot, even in another room. Somehow, she felt it. Heard it. Remembered it. Ray's heartbeat was louder than orders, stronger than commands. She closed her eyes, Dot, and dropped the weapon. The next morning, alarms screamed across the base that an enemy faction had launched a surprise strike. Explosions shook the halls. Zura rushed to the control room. Ray was already there, helping civilians get to safety. When he saw her, he didn't say anything, but he nodded, Dot, not in trust, but in readiness. They moved through fire and smoke, working like a single force. No hesitation. No second-guessing. As they cleared the evac zones, Zura spotted a figure hiding behind a control panel, Dot an assassin drone aiming at Ray Dot. She didn't think. She moved. The shot fired. Zura took it. Straight through the shoulder. Dot Ray turned, saw her fall, and screamed. Her name. He caught her before she hit the floor. You idiot, he said. Why would you do that? She looked at him, blood soaking her armor. Because I chose. Ray blinked. Chose what? She smiled weakly. Not to betray you. Then, darkness pulled her under. Asterisk. Hours later, she woke up in a medbed. Ray sat beside her, eyes tired but alive. You should be dead, he said quietly. I'm not that easy to erase, she whispered. He leaned forward. I'm sorry I doubted you. I was going to follow. The order, she admitted. But you didn't. No, she said. Because I didn't want the silence that comes after betrayal. I didn't want to stop hearing your heartbeat. Ray reached out. took her hand. No words, just warmth. And between them, something that no empire could command: loyalty freely chosen. Human things asterisk. The battlefield was quiet now. The enemy strike had been pushed back. The base stood, scarred but not broken. Repairs began. Bodies were buried, and new walls rose where old ones had burned. But something else was happening too, something invisible. Zura stood at the edge of the base wall, looking out at the stars. The wind here didn't blow, but the silence had weight. Her shoulder was still healing from the shot. The medics had offered pain blockers. She refused them. Pain was a reminder. It reminded her of the moment. She chose to stand between Ray and death, not because of orders, not because of strategy, but because she wanted to. And that single choice kept echoing through her like a strange melody she couldn't forget. Behind her, footsteps approached. Ray. He stopped beside her and didn't speak. For a while, they both just watched the empty space beyond. Saturn. Then he said, "You ever think about what you'd do after the war?" Zura frowned. "There is no after. There is only duty." Ray glanced at her. Spoken like someone who's never taken a vacation. She gave him a side eye. "Vacation? It's a human thing," he said. "We stop fighting, rest, do things we love." Zura looked confused. Why would anyone stop being useful? Ray leaned on the railing. "Because if you don't pause, you forget why you started. You become a weapon, not a person." She said nothing. Ray reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. "Here, another human thing." She opened it. Inside was a folded piece of paper, hand-drawn. A crude sketch of two figures standing on a cliff, looking at stars. "It's us," he said. "Sort of." Zura blinked. "Why?" Ray shrugged. "Because memories matter. You saved my life. I wanted to remember it." Zura stared at the drawing. No one had ever drawn her before. Not as a soldier. Not as a person. It was simple. But it shook her more than a laser blast. Later that night, Zura sat in her room, looking at the sketch again. Her communicator buzzed. Another message from High Strategist Vorik. "You disobeyed. You failed. You are no longer trusted." Her fingers hovered over the reply button, but she said nothing. And for the first time in her life, she didn't care what her command thought. The next day, she and Ray were sent on a recovery mission and abandoned Earth. Ship floating near Titan's orbit. The crew had vanished weeks ago. No signs of life, but strange signals were detected. Again, as they entered the ship, the lights flickered. Cold air wrapped around them like fingers. It felt like the haunted station all over again. Zura moved ahead carefully. Ray followed close behind. "This ship feels dead," she whispered. Ray pointed to a wall. "Not dead, broken." They moved deeper inside, stepping over shattered consoles and burned wiring. Suddenly, Zura paused. A sound, a child's voice. Soft, crying. Ray looked at her. "You hear that?" "Yes." They followed it into the cryo chamber. There, in one pod, was a little girl human, asleep but alive. The cryosystems had kept her frozen. Ray's face changed. "We have to get her out." Zura stared at the girl, something tightening in her chest. "Why was she left?" Ray replied, "Because war doesn't care who it forgets." Zura stepped back. Her voice was shaky. "I don't know how to help children. You don't have to," he said. "Just be kind." "Kind?" Another human thing. A return to the base with the girl. The medics took her in. Ray stayed beside her until she woke up. Zura watched from the window as the child reached out and Ray held her hand. Zura turned away, not because it was weak, but because it was too powerful. That night, Ray found her sitting alone again. "You did good today." I didn't do anything. She said. You stayed, he said. Sometimes that's enough. She looked at him. Her voice was quiet. Ray, do all humans hold hands when they're scared? He smiled. Most do. She hesitated. What about when they're not? Scared? What about when they just want to feel something? Ray stepped closer, slowly. Then they hold hands, too. Or hug, or kiss. Zura blinked. Is it always about love? He shook his head. Sometimes it's about connection. About saying, you're not alone. She looked down at her hand. It trembled slightly. Ray reached out, but stopped, just before touching her. May I? He asked. Zura slowly nodded. Their fingers touched. No spark. No light. Just warmth. Zura closed her eyes. And for the first time, the wall around her heart cracked. Just a little. Later, in her quarters, she recorded a message, but this time not to her command. To herself. They told me emotions weaken us, but I'm starting to think they protect us, not from enemies, but from becoming like them. The final battle, the war, was not over. It never truly ended, only paused in silence. But now, the silence had broken. A coded message reached the Alliance base at 0300 hours. The rogue AI fleet long thought destroyed had returned. Their ships were heading straight toward Earth, faster than any defense could respond. The fleet was massive. Thousands of warships, upgraded with new stolen technology. And this time, they weren't looking to enslave. They were coming to erase. The command center buzzed with chaos. Generals yelled. Maps flickered. Panic spread like fire. Zura stood still in the middle of it all. But inside her, something calm had grown. She had seen death, betrayal, and shadows. She had felt doubt, confusion, and guilt. But now, as the sky darkened with incoming warships, she felt clarity. Ray entered beside her, already in armor. His face was hard, but his eyes stayed soft when they met hers. They'll hit Earth in Inja. 18 hours, he said. And they're not stopping. Zora nodded. Then we stopped them. A general called out, we need volunteers for the Omega assault team. High risk, no guarantee of return. Ray raised his hand. Zura raised hers before even thinking. The room paused. No one questioned her anymore. Not after everything she'd done. The mission, suicide or salvation. The Omega assault was simple in design, but deadly in execution. Past the AI fleet. Enter their command ship, the Coramind. Destroy its neural processor. If successful, the rest of the fleet would fall into disarray. If not, Earth would burn. The plan required 2 to go in. Everyone expected Zura and Ray. They didn't say no. On the ship, flying toward the dark heart of the enemy, Ray adjusted his gloves in silence. Zura stood beside him, her expression unreadable. You? Okay? Ray asked. I don't understand why I'm not afraid, she said. Ray looked at her. Maybe you've just accepted the truth. What truth? That some things are worth dying for. Zura turned to him slowly. Ray, if we don't come back, do humans always kiss before they die? He smiled, broken but brave. Sometimes, if they love. She looked at him for a long time. And if they don't know what they feel? Then they hold on, he whispered. And maybe figure it out together. Their hands touched briefly. Then the alarm beeped. They had arrived. Inside the beast, the AI command ship was unlike anything Zura had ever seen. Alive with cold energy. Lights pulsed like veins. The air felt electric, yet empty of life. Ray moved ahead, leading with a scanner. Zora stayed close, silent and sharp. Suddenly, the walls around them shifted. Traps, lasers burst from the ceiling. Drones flew from hidden doors. Ray rolled, fired. Zora moved like a shadow, graceful and violent. They fought together like a single blade. But time was running out. The core was close. Protected by a final room one with no doors. Only a platform surrounded by floating machines dot as they stepped onto it. A voice echoed around them. Zura of Zev Prime. You do not belong here. She froze. She recognized the voice. Her commander. His image flickered into view projected by the AI systems. We gave you every chance, he said. You chose wrong. Ray raised his weapon. Step aside. You are not important, human, the voice said. Zura is the future. She will complete her mission. Alone, Zura stepped forward. Her voice was calm. I already completed my mission. The hologram sneered. Then why are you standing beside him? Zura didn't hesitate. Because I finally understand who the enemy is. The machines around them activated. One chance. One core. One choice. Ray ran left. Zura charged forward. A drone fired a direct. Hit to Ray's side. He collapsed. Zura screamed. Turned back, but he shouted, Don't stop. Finish it. She hesitated. Orders or heart. Warrior or woman. Code or connection. She turned and ran to the core. The end of the beginning. Core pulsed like a heart of light. Zura slammed the detonator on its shell. It began to crack, screaming with static. A wave of energy exploded outward, shaking the ship. Zura barely made it back to Ray before the entire platform collapsed. She dropped beside him, pulling him close. Blood, metal, heat. His voice was weak. Did we win? She held his face gently. Yes, you saved them. His eyes flickered. Then it was worth it. She leaned down, her forehead touching his and then finally she kissed him. Not like she had seen in human films. Not awkwardly, not like an alien, but like a woman who chose love over logic. That it wasn't a goodbye. It was a promise. Rescue arrived. Hours later, Earth was safe. The AI fleet had fallen, but Zura was changed. Not just her heart. Her purpose, her belief. In her final report to the Zivari Council, she said only this. You told me emotions make us weak, but it was emotion that saved. Earth, loyalty that won the war, and love that made me stronger than I've ever been. After the war the war was over, but the silence it left behind was louder than any scream. Skies above Earth were clear for the first time in months. The stars no longer held fleets, just light. Cities were rebuilding. Soldiers were returning home. And yet, for Zura, nothing felt familiar anymore, because she was not who she used to be. Earth's ceremony of peace, a ceremony took place in New Geneva, one of the first rebuilt cities on Earth. Flags of many worlds waved together. Humans and aliens stood side by side, not as soldiers now, but as survivors. Zura stood on the balcony overlooking the crowds. She wore a long black coat, not armor. Her silver blade was gone. She had turned it in voluntarily. I no longer need a weapon, she had told the council. I've already chosen my side. Now, as drums echoed and speeches began, she stood still, eyes scanning the people below. They called her the alien who bled for Earth. But she didn't come for fame. She came for him. Ray had survived, but just barely. The explosion at the AI core had torn through half his side. For 3 days, he hovered between life and death in cryostasis. The doctors said he fought harder than anyone they'd ever seen. Zura had not left the hospital once during that time. She sat beside him in silence, holding his hand not as a soldier watching a comrade, but as something else. When he finally opened his eyes, weak and smiling, he had whispered, "Still here?" Zura had answered, "Always." Now, weeks later, Ray sat in a hoverchair near the edge of the stage. One arm still wrapped, a few wires still connected to his chest. But his eyes were strong. Awake, alive. Zura approached slowly. He saw her and smiled. "Look at you," he said. "Famous and still too serious." She stood beside him. "You still talk too much." He laughed. "Maybe you like that now." She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her coat and pulled out something wrapped in soft cloth. "What's this?" Ray asked. "A gift," she said. He unwrapped it slowly. It was a stone. Not just any stone. One from Zev Prime, her home planet. Smooth, purple, and carved by hand. On it, two figures were etched, standing side by side beneath stars. He looked up. "You made this?" She nodded. "We don't draw, but we carve what we cannot say." Ray held it like something sacred. "What does it say?" Zura hesitated. And spoke softly. "It says I stayed." The council's final question 2 days later, Zura was summoned by the Interworld Peace Council. A final review before she returned home or stayed on Earth. A long table. Many eyes. Some human. Some not. A human general asked first, "Do you wish to stay on Earth, Zura?" A Zevari elder asked next, "Or will you return home, rebuild with your people?" Zura stood silently between them, then said something unexpected. "I will not stay," she said. Ray, watching from a side seat. "Look down. Zura continued. "And I will not return." The council stirred. "I will go somewhere new," she said. "A place where hearts matter more than orders. Where purpose is not given but chosen." A human woman asked, "What will you do there?" Zura smiled softly. "I will learn how to live." One last moment before she left, she returned to the cliffside meadow Ray once mentioned, a place he said he'd go if the war ever ended. He was already there, leaning on a cane, watching the sky. "You came," he said. She nodded. They sat together, shoulder to shoulder, watching the wind dance through tall grass. Ray turned to her. "So, no more war?" "No," she said. "No more orders?" "None." He smiled. "So what now?" Zura reached out and gently took his hand. "Now," she said, "we do human things." Final log, Zura of Nowhere. They said aliens don't kiss. They said we don't love, don't feel, don't change. But they were wrong. I kissed a human once, not because I understood, but because I wanted to. Now I understand. You kiss. To remember. To promise. To connect. And when I kissed him, I became more than what I was. I became who I wanted to be. Not Zevari, not human. Just alive.